Well, good news. Pistons came early. They weren't supposed to be here till Monday. It's Friday night. I got some Pistons. Usually go to work tomorrow, but I worked remote from home today, so I got all evening to mess with the motor, get it together. Now, this is why they wouldn't do the return the way I wanted. Right, it comes with the rings installed. What happens is these get shipped back to this company, and the return policy is they receive the item, they inspect it, and then you get a refund. But the refund, they do not reimburse their shipping cost because they gave me free shipping, right? So they're going to take out whatever it's going to cost me to ship to them, and then whatever they paid to ship to me, and they're in Washington, so all the way across the country. I gotta imagine the way the postal service is nowadays, it was probably at least 15 bucks. So we're looking at, if I did send the one back, I might get $50 out of it. So if I can put both of them on eBay and get 100, and somebody can get a full set of rings for a good deal, and I don't have to worry about only hanging on to a bunch of rings for no good reason, that might be the right answer. But we're gonna do next, move the wife's car back and get the power washer out, because it doesn't have far to go. We're going to power wash all this off, so if later tonight we're all the way assembled and we want to put it in, we can put it in without worrying about the dirt and the grimies. And then I'll power wash off all of this garbage. This is just dust from cutting the tile as it washed down the driveway, so we'll just go ahead and push it right down there with the rest of the dirt. So that's all it is rocks and dirt ground up into smaller rocks until it turns into sand, right? So yep, we'll hop to it. I still haven't fixed my pole starter, so it's good enough. Choke's on, throttle's on. Try to hold this, put my foot in it. It seems like a dumb idea. Okay, perfect. So I'll keep it from making too much pressure and stopping the motor. Nice. Right, so I feel a bit like a crazy person. Here's that top compression ring. Filed it a bit, and this is a .008 gauge. Slips, well, when I have two hands and I can line it up proper. Look at the size of that. Now, you are supposed to have a larger gap on your second ring than your first one, but the book says top and middle compression ring end gap, new bore. But I wonder if that's for an A-type piston. Is there a different gap for type B, right? We'll see. I mean, we barely took anything off the ring that was there, so I don't think we would have caused a problem if the gap's larger. But we definitely want to dig around a bit and see if there's a different value for the style B piston somewhere out in the ether. So, yay, I found the manual that I had upstairs. It's a slightly different one, must be updated because it has piston style B. And the top ring is .003 to .011. Right now we are .008. So it may be that we don't need to file these rings, so I'm going to take that one that I filed, and it can be part of our waste of money. But a used bore, .019, so it gets pretty big. Same thing with that middle compression ring. Look at that. We're not 00, we're just a single 0. So .05 to .06 for a new bore. So we'll check these to these proper specs and see where we're at. I got a feeling that the way they ship, they're probably going to be okay to just slap in there, because a lot of people would just do that and they wouldn't even check it, and everything would probably be fine. So we'll get that fresh ring in that wasn't filed at all and see if it's bigger than 0039, so really 004. It'll be good. So there is the gap on our untouched ring that came with the piston, and sure enough, .004 fits in there, but barely. So we're good to go. We don't need to file it. We'll check this compression one next, and then the oil ones don't have a spec. They just go in because they don't need to be tight to hold anything in place. They just need to scrape oil up and down. And I almost forgot about paper towel tripod. So there's our second compression ring, and the spec is .0555. So we're going to do 025 and a 021 for .0. Well, that's .046. We need a 2521 and a 010. Yeah, so 2521 is .046. This will be .056. all three of these together, and it fits, but it's pretty tight. Now if we go another 1/10 up, well, really we'll go 0.009 because our limit is 0.066. So by adding this fourth plate will be 0.065. And if this is too tight and doesn't go in, which it doesn't, I can't get it. Yeah, I can't get them in there, so it's not past that limit either. So good to go. When we do the other side, we'll go ahead and we'll do that anyway. Yeah, so we'll check those two on this side for their piston to know that they're going to be right. Then we need to swap out our wrist pins, and we'll be ready to assemble. This manual has a lot more detail. So it has the piston like this, and it says your top compression rings gap should be straight up with the flywheel mark, and the center one should be straight down, your intermediate. So that compression ring gap needs to be straight down, straight up, straight down. Now they even specify with the oil ring, the gap for the little oil retention ring in the middle, the wavy one, needs to be on this side, and then the gaps for the top and bottom plate for the oil ring need to be here and here, offset. So I'll need two hands to do that. We'll do it on both pistons, and then we have just a sanity check. Shows us for cylinder 1 this guy, cylinder 2 this guy, what the connecting rod layout's supposed to be. Now it doesn't really show me which side of the piston that is. Maybe it says it out loud. Cylinders are numbered. Make sure to install piston connecting rod end cap as appropriate. Proper orientation of piston connecting rod assemblies. I can read that later, and then we'll get these slid in part way. We'll have to have the crank in place so that they can go over this and get bolted in. Normally I worry about losing these clips, but they came with brand new ones, so I don't bother taking out both sides. But now if this I'm gonna get two hands because I'm gonna put my eye out. Okay, so for more clarification on the picture, I have this with the pointing towards the flywheel, same way it will be in the cylinder. And it says the flat sides of the rods, right? Flat side, raise the rib. Flat side. Flat sides will face each other. Since this cylinder is further forward, we want the flat side towards us. On 2, we're going to want the flat side away from us. So that's how it gets installed. We'll get the wrist pin in place, get this pushed in, tightened down but not torqued to the crank, so we have a little bit of wiggle room to put that one in, and then we'll torque them both. Looks like more than one type of connecting rod bolt too. We got 8mm straight shank, this is straight, 8mm step down, and 6mm straight shank. This looks like a 6 to me, but we'll measure it to be sure, right? We don't want to goof that up. Okay, got my K tool. This is pretty nice. I've had this for a long time, really like it. Never calibrated it, so we're good as she anyway at this point. But 100 inch-pounds for that 6mm. A lot of times with bolts this small, the torque value is there so you don't snap it, right? You get a wrenching on it. Somebody like me will just break that thing in half. For a connecting rod bolt, maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't. I would think that they would want some kind of thread locker, but they don't specify it, and it's not torque to yield, so we'll just do it. 100 inch-pounds. One of these, this side I'm on now, isn't seated all the way yet, so it'll take a little before it actually gets up there. That's it. The other side. So, something people like to argue about, which truth of the matter is, if I go back over that one and I click it again, I'm increasing the torque on the fastener. You don't go back and double check them by click, click, click. I know everybody does it with car wheels, but that's not as critical. So there, click. Done. Rinse and repeat on the other side, and we can look at putting the oil pump back in that side case and assembling that. This is interesting. They've got give a little more light. It's a timing mark. Maybe it's too much light. See that dot? Yeah, so that's a timing mark, and it's not at top dead center, right? I'm used to, well, because you wouldn't be able to see this without splitting the case, right? So it just doesn't matter. But yeah, they probably do that so these pistons are in a position where all 4 valves are closed at the same time, which would make, I mean, that should be possible with a little V-twin like this. So I got a bunch of semi lube on it. That bottom dot is our timing mark. So we just need to, I'm gonna do it with one hand. Not goofing anything up. Probably one more over. Yeah, should be it. Story of my life right here. I can't find the hole. There we go. So there we go. And now our marks are lined up. So our cam is properly timed to the crank and pistons and all that good stuff. It also made note to keep this thing all the way against the cylinder. And there's directions in there on how to set this governor after everything's assembled as well. I just want to make sure that it's not, that that's together before we go cranking on stuff, because if stuff wasn't in the way, it could come play with that gear. So next step, we need to get the oil pump back in the case. Then the case can go on with our Yama bond, and we'll be complete on the inside. It'll just be a matter of putting the lifters back in. You're supposed to squeeze those down before reassembly, reattaching all the head stuff. Now it's just kind of the normal engine build stuff. So here's the guts of it. Here's my old pistons. They're still good. Yeah. Oh well. This basically finger tight, torque this side, torque this side. It's got a little bit of resistance, but not like it did before. We put a little assembly lube in there just to make sure things are slick. Like once it has oil going through it, it'll be just fine. Well, nothing lasts forever, right? This stuff's at least a decade old. There's a lot of crusties and weird colors up at the top, so I don't trust that it's still the correct mixture to do what it's supposed to do. So we're going to do what the manual says. We're going to use black RTV and fresh stuff that we know will work. Okay, so the key points here, you're lining this stuff up. This one will line up pretty well on its own. We can grab this and kind of wiggle it to get the cam to pop in. We got a dowel here. We got a dowel that's going to go in here. This dowel gets an O-ring because it's an oil passage, and the other one does not. That one should be the only oil passage, right? And then this one has a bolt that goes through and it's empty on the other side, so it's got RTV all around, so it'll seal anyway. Make sure our governor thing's back, nothing here's falling off, oil pump's looking good. That's the other reason to wiggle this, is it'll help line these teeth up. I think the seal is what's stopping us right now. Seal of the crank. So we don't have anything, cam's lined up. There it's going. Ooh, you don't turn easy. Yeah, okay. I can see the, don't push out, crazy. You can see the gears. Those are pushed right up against the cam. That one's not stopping it. It's probably that oil pump trying to mesh. Let's hold this up now. You don't want to force any of this stuff. I can turn the oil pump. Those are plastic too, so you don't want to goof them. There we go. Okay, yeah, it looks pretty good. They have a torque stuff. Oh, come on. There we go. Make sure end of governor cross shaft is like its crankcase. We did that. Closure plate. We should make sure that moves and it didn't move and bind up on us. So, okay. So that's good. We didn't crush anything. And then install closure plate. Install screws securing closure plate to crankcase to 216 inch-pounds following sequence. They have the sequence up here. It looks like it's a cross. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So kind of like a car wheel. I'm just going to go back and forth and see which two I do. I'll do 1 and 2, then I'll check them, do 3 and 4. Do it nice and slow so I don't do it out of order. We don't want this thing to leak. Otherwise it's looking really good, starting to look like an engine. And now I got the stator. That goes in. All it does is specify that the wire goes down, so it goes in its little hole. And it's got that little ridge is going to pinch it on purpose so it holds it in place. Good stuff like that. I know these two go there. This one doesn't. I don't remember what the hell this one does. Oh, maybe it goes like that. That would make sense. We'll pull this out. So these threads use thread sealant, which means they might have oil on the other side of them. So we grab their sealant from the bathroom, and that'll be just fine. So we pull it off and look at the shield again. Okay, there's only one way that it makes sense, and that's like this. So it kind of covers, same thing, covers the wire, so it holds it tucked up against the engine. So yeah, we'll make sure he goes in, the shield's going, and it looks like, judging by the marks on the shields, this goes, I don't know, you can see there, it goes over it. You can see where the strap was. Cool. Something to note, I had stator and shields, right, that bag, and that had those bolts in it. It also had these in it, right? So my instinct was, oh, this goes to this side, so it holds the thing on, and it seemed like it was, but that doesn't thread in. It's not right. And I was like, where the hell does this thing go? Well, this fits over that. Has to do with those pulleys over there. And this one threads into that side. And this one, even though it's longer, will go down in a ways, and then there's threads. That probably helps protect the threads for when you put a puller on here and goof stuff up. So this one definitely goes on this side and puts the flywheel in. This stuff belongs to the other side. It was just in a bag with the stator stuff. So be careful. Here's fan and shaft shit. So what we need to do, well, the fan goes on this side. So yeah, these can just hang out because now we know that if they're that side. And get this pulley out of the way until we get to that. Pulley's in there with all the junk. Yeah, so we'll get this side done. It has us installing the fan and all that stuff. I don't know why. I'm just following the manual so that I don't skip anything or overlook anything. But I would want to put this stuff all on and get it covered up and protected before I deal with this external stuff. But I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to forget anything. Okay, for those following along, I take the big boy out because this one's 49 foot-pounds, which really isn't that much, but yeah, I'll jam this guy in there because it's easy leverage. I'll need 2 hands, so we'll check back in a minute. So next up, finally, get to do the heads. So lifters go in, and they need to go in the same position that they started with. So we know this is the exhaust side, this is the intake side, and we have somewhere here. So here's pump side intake, right? Intake, exhaust, front, it doesn't matter. Intake and heads, no. Pump side exhaust. Those go together. Those are pump side and exhaust. So by pump side we meant fuel pump. So we need to have a memory. So the fan is the front of the mower, or no, this is towards you when you're sitting on the mower. And when you're doing that, the fuel pump is on this left side, so pump side. And then this stuff, not pump side. So we'll go through, give these a wipe, make sure there's no khakis on them. assembly lube on the lifters, well, assembly lube anywhere the metal touches, and we're just going to put one together at a time. Maybe I'll get the towel out and film one, but I gotta take a shit and I want to get the charger for the camera, so I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so lifters before the head, we just kind of cover it in assembly lube, get all the other ones in already, drop her down in there in the same spots they came out from, and they'll be fine. So next thing I'll have to put the head together. I didn't clean these valves up yet, so I'll have to clean those up by hand. I think I'll have to do the mating surface of the head gasket on the heads themselves, because all they are is cleaned off right now. So it's getting a little late. Hopefully what I'm hoping is I leave the air compressor off, and if there's enough air in there to use the roll lock. If there's not, we'll shut the garage door and it should be quiet enough for a little bit. Valves cleaned up and in place. I didn't bother lapping the seats because they don't have any nicks or scars or weird spots in them. They look like they're in good shape, so I'm not going to worry about whether they're sealing or not. We're pretty confident our stuff was getting out through the rings. Maybe we'll do a leak down after it's assembled, just so that it can fail miserably and we can laugh at ourselves for wasting all this time, but I don't think that'll be the case. So we got our stack for the exhaust valve, right? Because the only thing left in the exhaust side is the rocker and the push rod, and we got our tool. So we'll get those together, pop those collars back on, and we'll be ready to put a head down. I was able to get everything cleaned with the air that I had, but I'll need more air to do the other side. So yeah, they don't need anything fancy, but if you have a little bit of grease on the inside of these, easier to do with two hands, right? But that'll help them. See how they stick to my finger? They'll stick to that when you put them on there. So I can probably, now with the greased up, you want the angled side down. Hopefully I can, not a lot of space. So there, so that one's in place. Now that since it's greasy, I can push it, see, and rotate it around to the back side, so that it's not in the way when I go to put this one on. Boom. So yeah, they feel pretty good. Now when we loosen this thing up, that taper and that top cap should catch it. Yep, there we go. So do that 3 more times and we're good to go. We'll have built heads. And when you do the intake side, don't forget to put your new valve stem seal in place, right? I almost forgot. So I noticed the one in the bag, my old one that I kept to make sure they match. I was like, oh shit, put your seal in. And I did put some lube on that one just to make sure it doesn't get torn up or anything weird. It's got a bunch of ribbed things in there to kind of keep this clean and sealed up. So yeah, it'll be fine. Holy shit. So yesterday, right, 24 hours ago, I was messing with electrical stuff. Microphone for the motorcycle helmets. I come over here to plug the compressor in and I see this cord. I was like, what the hell are you? What are you using? And I come over here and look at. So I'm confident because I had this thing sitting here, right? It was sitting like this on the vise. And I just came over here a few minutes ago to press the hydraulic lifters. I just put a socket on one side and then just gave them a tiny bit of pressure, doot, make sure there's no oil stuck in them. So I think what happened is when I was doing that, this got knocked off. Because I don't think that in only a day's time it would make that hole. And I can't believe I didn't catch the goddamn house on fire. This thing's still, like, it's hot, man. This is one of the Chinese ones, so it just takes all the power and shoves it into your workbench. Holy cow. Like, be careful out there. Even the best of us can screw up. Hang out down there by the cement until you cool off. And then this guy, it's warm. Yeah, I think we dodged a bullet. This is a fun one going into the heads. So one, they say if you remove the studs that you should put new ones in. But if you don't remove the studs, you don't need new ones. So what that tells me is they're not torque to yield, and there's nothing wrong with them. What they're probably afraid of is people screwing up the threads and not getting proper torque settings. We jammed all those in the vise in the center of the shaft and chased all the threads, so we're not going to have that issue. But studs closest to the lifters need an exposed height of 2 15/16. Studs furthest from the lifters need 2 3/4. So the lower ones, 2 3/4, right? So we did this side, 2 3/4, and then 2 15/16. So all the studs are the same length. Yeah, it's just interesting that they need that. It just must be the profile, you know, one side of the head's higher, we can see it from here. But yeah, they don't have like a torque setting. You just put them into a certain length and then go for the gold. So heads go on, we get, they do specify to lubricate with engine oil. So we'll get some engine oil on the threads. New washer and nut onto each stud. First to 150 inch-pounds, then to 315 inch-pounds. That second one we're going to need the bigger torque wrench for, so I think we'll use the bigger one overall. We'll just we'll have to convert it to, well, no, that's got newtons on the other side, so maybe we'll use both torque wrenches, but either way, it's just a two-step. If it had degrees afterwards, then it might be a torque to yield, but I'm confident that it's not. Oh, and here they are, right? So gaskets have, looks like a little ridge and some stuff on this upper side, right? And then on the back side, it's got the same pattern that we saw, that we cleaned off of here. So that leads me to believe it goes this way. They do look symmetrical, like it wouldn't really matter, but that's the way we're gonna do it. How you go together. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So we'll get our new nuts and washers in place, and we'll torque to what it said. There's probably an order too. Yeah, 1 2 3 4. It's just a cross hatch, and then 1 2 3 oh, different per cylinder, 1 and 2. So what that tells me, we got a weird little tab thing over here. Well, not 1 and 2. So the right side of 1 and the left side of 2. Here's 2 left side. So they are torquing the exhaust side first in a diagonal. Boom, 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 boom. All right, moving into push rods and rockers. So it's all loosey-goosey, right? Well, that's because you want this bolt torqued without pressure on it. If you have the push rod in place and you're compressing a valve, well, now your torque value will change when you put this bolt down. So make sure it's nice and square when you do it. And then they specify in the manual to use a lever to pry on this to make enough room to pop the push rod in place. So now, if one of these is in such a bad position where it's trying to compress a valve and we don't have the spark plugs in, we can just move the motor and get it to where we need it to be to make that easy. So everything's in place. These are kind of a pain in the butt. I used my big pry bar and just got as close to the edge, staying lateral like this so it wouldn't pop off. And I was able to get these in. Now, I had some spots that felt kind of tight when I'd rotate it. So what I did is every single time, like I put one in and I'd rotate the motor, make sure nothing weird's going on. And these would compress a lot tighter than I expected. So clearly I didn't push the oil out of the lifters far enough, right? They were almost bottoming out. So what one of the things that I did, and we'll look at this cylinder first, is I went along and then I would get to the point where it starts pushing that valve down. Well, this one went down quite a bit further than it does right there even. So I would get into this range and I'd just kind of like pump it up and down, and you could watch the spring kind of expand, right? As you do that, you kind of like pump away, and it would get a little bit taller because we're pushing the oil out of that lifter underneath. Now when the engine spools up for the first time, the hydraulic pressure of the oil will get those lifters to their proper length, just like they would in your car. But at this point you can see, you know, I can rotate freely all the way around. I don't have any interference. There's no spark plugs in, so it doesn't make compression. It makes it easy to do by hand. But this shows that when I spin it up, I'm not going to have a valve contact a piston, right? Clearly my cam timing that I did was correct, and we're safe to continue on. This is always fun to look at. And this actually has a pretty nice gasket, but we're cleaned up here. We've got our our only things that really exist is this passage in the top that links, right? So this thing will blow out from the crankcase into this area in this little, not even looking at it. So this thing blows out, and then there's a sealed off area for this, which encompasses itself and some holes. So we have a hole, this hole here goes up to the carb, and it's there from the other side of the blue pad. And this side of the blue pad gets, you know, it's buddies from here. So what it looks like happens is this blows air out, goes into here. This is supposed to collect it and let it drip down before it can get out to the carburetor. And then we have a sensor here. So this thing has the oil pressure safety thing, right? So it knows it's getting enough oil, and they're clearly separate passages, right? When we look in here, we have just passage, like it's got a hole on that side, it's got a hole on this side. Yeah, there's holes all over the place, but they're all limited. So that hole there lines up with this guy for the sensor, and then you got other holes that line up with nothing. It's only the sensor. So I don't know why these holes exist, other than maybe some manufacturing thing. But when this goes on here, it's actually two parts, right? So this chamber that does blow by is completely separate from whatever this sensor does, which I'm hoping is oil pressure. So here's why this doesn't go on earlier, because these shields are held down by two of these bolts, and they want them finger tight so that these can move around when the other stuff goes in place, and then they'll get a final torque. So I guess stuff will have to slip under here. I think I was supposed to put the intake on already and the coils, but I haven't done that. And it does specify the gap for it. I'm getting kind of tired. Might call it a night. Just clean up, get some sleep. I'm going to put the glass in. Dad's coming over tomorrow since the boy tested negative for old COVID, so we're not worried about passing that on to the old folks. Yeah, so maybe we'll just leave it be. Tomorrow we'll put the coils on, space them, put the intake on, finish up some of this stuff. Yeah, because we're not gonna be able to mow tomorrow, right? If I could mow Sunday, that would be great. I need to pick up this part that attaches the shaft to make it dry from work. Got some cracks in it when I was goofing around trying to pull the flywheel with it, which was a dumb idea. Wish I had video of that, because it's just really stupid, right? I tried to use the piece of a cast aluminum with the bolts here and then I was backing this out with a wrench, and I heard a pop, and I thought the flywheel had started to come off, and no, that pop was it splitting in half because I'm dumb. So hopefully our fabricator at work has gotten to that. I haven't been there all week to kind of check on him, so maybe he forgot. I offered him cash, so we'll see. If it's not repaired, I don't think it needs to be, because it didn't actually come in half, right? And so what you end up with is there's two bolts here that hold it down, and there's 4 bolts that go to the shaft. So you would just have 2 bolts in a piece, and then the center wouldn't be all that great. I'm not sure that'll be an issue. We'll see. If he didn't take it together, I'm not great at TIG, but I'm not bad at it either, so maybe I'll give it a try. Worst case, we're delayed by ordering that piece, which is $25 online.